isn't easy.
Right. Okay, so how do you feel LearnCheck 6 went after looking at your Master Connect data?
It was rough compared to 4 and 5.
Was it?
4, there was a major upturn, like a lot of high scores. 5, my first block did really well, and my second and third block had fewer high scores.
Yeah.
But the 6th LearnCheck, my second block actually had the most high scores. There were 3 that got an A or a B. And everybody else just like really had a hard time with it. And as they were doing the test, I was getting, Miss Pate, this is hard. This is harder.
Did they? I was gonna say, what kind of anecdotal data could you collect? Was it like their stamina? Did they say the passages were more difficult? What did they say?
I was hearing the passages like, oh, these are longer. This one's harder to stick with. Like, you know, that's my words, but like,
so
they didn't like the passages.
Yeah. I anticipated them having a stamina or struggling with stamina only because they've had 2 passages, obviously, on LearnCheck, but not 2 longer passages. And so I knew that would potentially be something that we would run into, but I'm glad that they were exposed to it because that's not going to stop.
Yeah. And that's what I told them. I said, you know, it's the middle of the school year now. You should expect it to get harder, so we need to amp up our game if this is feeling too difficult.
Right. And I don't know if you noticed this, but surprisingly, my kids did way better on informational text, even though we haven't read an informational text in
That's the same thing I said to Ms. Riker yesterday.
The entire module yet. And so, I mean, that's encouraging because it means that those skills stuck with them.
Yeah.
But what's discouraging is that the 2 standards that we taught to the hardest were the lowest.
7.4.
Yep. Well, for me, it was 7.3 and 7.1.
RL 7.1 was a big obstacle for most of my students. Like you said, RI, they had it.
Yeah.
The RL 7.1, a lot of 0.
And we're going to talk about why in a second after diving into our data. Okay, so you brought 2 high and 2 low. Because we focused specifically on RL 7.1 and RL 7.3, I pulled up, I don't know if you know how to do this, so I'm going to show you how to do it really quickly. When you're in your tracker, here, actually, let's go to one of yours. And I also moved some standards around for you so you could see the progression on LearnCheck. Yeah. So let's go to your block 1. You would scroll over to where you see LearnCheck 6, click it, or I guess you could hover over it, and then hover over here and it gives you a reports option. When you click on reports, this is what pulls up. So it shows you the breakdown by question, what answer choice was chosen over the other answer choices, and then what's really cool is like for question 11, most scholars chose 11. Who chose it? So that we can zero in on those kids, which is helpful. So the questions that we're going to focus on, because when I looked at Mastery Connect across the board, questions 9, 11, and 12 were like glaringly off for kids. So we'll go back to those questions in a moment and like break down why. So first, take a look at your high, both of your high, and go through their annotations for specifically the second text, since we're focusing on these 3 because kids did really well on the informational. And focus in on how they annotated the actual questions. So first we're just starting with high, and then we'll come back together and kind of talk about that. So take like...
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So my highest students in all 3 blocks didn't actually turn in the annotation sheet. I don't know that that's that they didn't annotate or that they didn't pass it up when they were supposed to, and it ended up in their background check. So I pulled the highest percentages out of those who did turn in annotation sheets to me. So would it still be worthwhile to...
Yeah. What score did they get? Do you know?
I mean, they're low, but they're the highest of the annotation sheets. 58% for my first block and 50% for my second block.
Okay. I'm going to give you a high from my block just so you can get an idea of guess high is relative. She got a 75, but higher. I had like 4 kids who got a 92. A lot of kids who got a 75. So look at yours and that one, and go through and see what did the scholar do well first, and then we'll talk about what they did not do in just a moment. Okay. So I'm going to put 3 minutes on the timer. Actually, can I pause you really quickly? I forgot to do something. Before we can even look at that, we have to understand the question. Okay. So let me pull up the question really quickly because it'll make more sense when we're actually looking at it. Okay. Okay, so here's question 9. Based on the dialogue with her mother, which of the following best describes Nicolette at the end of the selection? So it's kind of 2 in 1, inference and yep, 7.3. So what are kids going to have to be able to know in order to get this question right?
You have to answer out loud or
yeah.
Okay. They have to know what dialogue they're talking about between the character and her mother.
Right. So they have to know. Hold on, where is the insert comment? Oh. Yep. What dialogue? What else? I see that they're gonna have to know the vocabulary and the answer choices. Yeah, and that was something, this question specifically, I remember kids asking me what affectionate and insensitive meant.
Really?
Yes, over and over. And I didn't give it to them.
Yeah.
But I think it drastically affected some of the scores. So I'm just going to put answer choice vocab. What else do you think?
They'd have to be able to analyze how she changed from the beginning to the end of the selection.
So that's something they'll have to be able to do. Analyze how she changed from beginning to end. They're also going to have to be able to, they have to know that they have to make an inference.
Without them saying that directly. I mean, without the question saying that directly.
Right. Okay, so that's question 9. Let's go to 11. What can be inferred from the selection's last lines? Let's see.
So that one directly says to make an inference.
Right. So
shows the exact location in the text that they want you to focus on.
Right. So they have to go back to the last lines. What do you notice about the answer choices? Can you see?
Yeah, I'm just rereading it.
I think again some innovative, oblivious, maybe some vocab again.
Yeah. I was gonna say they all kind of have a positive tone to them, so that makes it a little trickier to pick out that, because if they were able to analyze at least that she changed from having a negative, kind of self-centered attitude at the beginning to a positive, more considered attitude at the end, then they would probably be looking for, okay, which one of these can I eliminate based on the fact that it still sounds negative, but none of them do. So they'd have to really be able to understand, what did she decide to do at the end of the story.
Yeah, actually, that's perfect, because the correct answer is B, but kids overwhelmingly chose C because she was sympathetic for her mom. You could tell, it states, you could infer that she felt bad for her mom, but then it never said in the text that she decided to wear something she already owns.
Yeah.
So it's a twofold answer choice. So you're right, the positive connotation could throw them off, but they have to be able to differentiate.
Yeah, see, because I would have chosen C. And when I read through this the first time, I was like, oh, yeah, that's it.
Right, but
I can see what I'm saying. I can see how that.
Yeah, sorry, no, I was just checking. Yeah. And the reason why I went back to this one when you just said that was because it was at the very end when she was like, "So can we still go?" And you had to be able to infer from that line. So this is deep,
Yeah.
like multiple layers of inferencing
Yeah.
that they would have to do. Okay. All right, and then question 12. How does the conversation in paragraphs 3 through 7 impact the story's plot? I think this word impact throws kids a lot.
Because they don't know exactly what we mean.
Yeah. But that's one of the most heavily used
Because that was in the
words
exit
on the
ticket
EOG.
for,
Yeah.
my second block was asking me that a lot. Like, what does that question mean? That's like break down for them.
Yep. So
What do you
side
mean?
note for you on that, as a scaffold for right now, I would put after the anytime you use the word impact, expose them to it, but then in parentheses put influence or effect, so that they know another word to
Replace that with when you're looking at it.
Yeah, because they're gonna see that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're gonna have to be able to go back to those specific paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you see?
There are some words in the industries again that they may not be familiar with, like foreshadows.
Yeah. And we haven't taught that.
No, we haven't foreshadows.
Right. I think plot still throws them off sometimes. I think that the way that plot has always been taught is in the diagram and less of events that happen in the story, and I think sometimes that throws them off.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So now, breaking down those 3 questions that we're going to be analyzing, go to the high,
Okay.
look at the text, how they annotated the literary text, and then look at specifically questions, hopefully they did annotate and get that far with their annotations. Questions 9, 11, and 12.
Okay.
And let me start our time. I'm saying one thing already, like glaringly. Kids are stamina isn't maybe not stamina, but time management for 2 longer passages.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Love you too, babe.
Hi, Pearson.
Don't be mean. What were you gonna say? Stood out to you?
One of the grows is for both. When they got to the second passage, it wasn't completely annotated, and they both wrote limited time. So it's time management is something that we need to work on with them. But that's a grow. We'll get there in a second. What did you see? Let's come back together if we feel like we're good.
Yeah.
So let's talk first what they did well, because that was just something that jumped out.
Yeah.
Out of me.
Well, they annotated the first passage well, because I know it's the same thing. I'm from my actual block only annotated for the first passage. And so she annotated the passage pretty well, but it's not as easy to follow. It's kind of girl on the go, I guess. It's not easy to follow because she didn't chunk a number of her notes. And then the questions, she wrote what answer she thought was correct, and then she annotated, like she wrote down what page number she got that text evidence from, as opposed to annotating the wrong answer. She just annotated the right answer. The one that you lent me from your class, she did a great job with her annotations of the passages, chunking and numbering, and it's easier to follow. I'm sure it's easier for her to follow if she needed to go back to her notes to answer questions. And she actually annotated the incorrect answers.
Will you tell me on the one that you have in your hand, what answer did she say was correct for question number 9?
It looks like B. It's the only one she didn't write anything next to.
Got you. So she didn't understand. You said that was the only one she didn't write anything next to?
She annotated A, C, and D.
Oh, yeah. So B was right. What are her annotations for the other?
That's C and D. Is that correct?
Yeah, so D is correct for 9.
Oh, maybe I was looking at the wrong question. Okay.
So what were her annotations for the wrong answer choices?
For A, she says, doesn't consider nothing. For
See,
C,
that's not what does that tell you?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah.
Okay, so.
It's not detailed.
Okay, so not text specific.
Mm-hmm. But I think she was rushing at this point because 9 is the last one that she finished her annotations for.
And same with over here.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to recap really quickly. So they annotated the passage, wrote what number is correct, and wrote the page number, but not wrong annotations. Easy to follow the annotations on some, chunked and numbered on some, annotated incorrect answers. But the grows are time management is huge. Some only annotated for the first passage, but not the second, due to time management. And some aren't easy to follow. And then it's not text specific when they're annotating for wrong answer choices.
And again, I think that's tied to time management.
Yep. Agree. Okay. Let's look at our 2 lower scores and do the same thing. good? Let's stop a minute early. What are you seeing for glows? What are some things that our lower scores are doing well?
They are very detailed in their annotations.
Are their annotations, they're detailed, are they correct, correct comprehension notes?
Some of them are just copying facts, like with the informational text. One of the students, she was literally just kind of rewriting what they were saying, but leaving some stuff out.
Who's that student?
Lauren Hunter.
Yeah.
And as a result, she didn't get past the annotated paragraph 3 of passage 1. And I think that became a time issue for her.
Yeah, so that's lack of comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So she's just copying it down. She's not interpreting anything, putting it in her own words.
Mm-hmm.
And then for another student, like she had like 5 pages of annotation.
With too much almost.
Yeah. And it's less, it's less detailed. Like she wrote for paragraph 1 of the informational text that they're giving a little bit of information on Ernest's background. Like this is what they're doing in this text. This is what the author is doing in this paragraph, but not like an actual summary of
Comprehension.
Yeah.
Okay. What about answer choice annotations?
This is tied into a grow for me because what I noticed with all of my lows is they only annotate one or the other. Either they completely annotate the passage and did not just wrote their answer choices, or they only annotated their answer choices and didn't do any annotation for the passage.
That's good to know. For me, I see chunking of text. I see the first step, like the lightning bolt and heart. But like for the first passage, she did really well in annotating her questions and answer choices, but then wrote passage 2 answers and wrote limited time. So she didn't even annotate a thing
For the passage.
for passage 2.
So it's a pacing thing.
Yeah. Okay. So, now that we have looked at that, let's go back to our questions. So we've already talked about why we think kids, or we've talked at least about each question that we're focusing on and the answer choices and what kids would have to know, understand, and do.
Ms. Elkins.
Hi, sweet.
Mr. Watson asked if I can put my Chromebook.
I don't have a card in here. Go down to Miss Smith's room. Mr. Bennett is in there, and he should have his keys to get into his room for your card. Yeah, because you'll need it during 4th block. So, what was I saying? Looking at these 3 questions. Knowing what kids are going to have to do to get them correct, knowing what they're going to have to understand to get them correct, those kinds of things. Our next step is to take the next 15 minutes, pull up the lesson that we're teaching tomorrow. So are you starting 6 tomorrow? Yeah. So pull up lesson 6 and either use one of these questions in a reteach, decide if it needs to be whole group reteach.
Okay.
Let me see for you. Yeah, so obviously those 3 questions would be, but let's see about the actual standard. So it looks like 7.1 could be whole group.
Okay.
And RL 7.3 could be whole group as well. So what are you going to do to model those question stems again, but apply it to borders? Maybe that means on the graphic organizer you add 2 more questions that use these question stems.
Okay.
so that kids are used to, yep, and then you're also showing them what they need to be able to do. So, for this one, based on the dialogue with her mother, which of the following best describes Nicolette at the end of the selection? Go to the informational text tomorrow and see, okay, she would have to, or here's the dialogue that we could focus in, here's the character trait that we can infer, and then you'd have to walk through that process.
So make it a separate, where do I put that in?
You could use the Lesson 6 graphic organizer. You could use this, I'll show you. You can create a different do now. You could add it in here somewhere where there's inferences or interactions between individuals, events, and ideas. Or you can go to, since this is informational text, I didn't even think about that. You could go to lesson 7
And plan
it in lesson 7. That might actually make more sense.
And use a passage from A Raisin in the Sun.
Yep. Okay. So on this day, the ideas that will be on page 77. So you could plan from there, or you could plan knowing where your kids will be, and looking at the passage and coming up with, let's say, at least 3 questions that use these 3 question stems.
Okay.
And then here, I'm going to try to minimize it so you can actually see. And then we'll talk about time management in just a moment and what we can do for that. Okay. So I'm going to set our timer for 15. Do you need the text?
For...
Or is it inside?
Yeah, I will. I have my copy. Thank you. This is my ear. Yeah. I'm just going to run out and grab a chocolate and stuff.
It would be hard for me to imagine that he's gone this far without somebody at least attempting an intervention. So we'll see. Thank you. He finishes and then it rains.
Yeah, I know, right? Super glad I got that done. The inside of my car.
Oh, you did yours too?
Yeah. The inside of my car was disgusting, though.
Does it look good now?
Yeah. Have you ever had him do it before? Oh, he does such a good job.
I'm excited. brother comes to the school.
I've seen him out there before. I didn't
Oh,
know.
really?
Well, one time I went out to do something for my car, and I was like, what? I thought somebody had, like, needed their tire changed. I was like, that's not what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right.
I always knew that. I think my siblings are going to be really mad when they find out we're not doing reading reviews in summer. During board reviews in summer.
They actually, when they saw the quinceañera slide, got excited for it.
Really?
Because they were like, oh, we haven't really talked about this culture much.
Yeah.
And so the Hispanic kids you have, their excitement will get other kids excited. I didn't even tell them to be at Voice Level 0, and they were silent the whole time.
That's good.
And I think it's an easy text to read, too.
They just were like,
They're into it.
yeah. My first block was like, no. She said,
Yeah.
no.
Quick question.
Thanks.
All right, Miss, I need to take tomorrow afternoon off.
Mhm.
Miss Pitt isn't here for that little approval. Do I just put it in the system?
I would put it in the system, and then I would go get the early leave form,
Yeah, I got
And-
one.
print off that you put it in the system, staple it, and give it to Miss Rome instead.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. So the the early release form is only if you are 2 hours or
Or
under,
less,
right?
Right,
yeah.
I didn't mean early release. I meant the personal
Okay, I got
leave
it.
day. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
How's my Skype?
I think she's okay. She texted me late last night and said she couldn't stop throwing up, and then this morning, emailed the work. So I hope she's okay.
Wait, I should put it on.
You think it can work?
Hmm?
You think it can work? Adding the
That you know, yeah. I'm looking at the end of scene 2 of Act 1, since that's where we left off. And I'm seeing something that could work with the same questions then from number 9.
Gotcha. That's good.
The lesson documents with the DNOS and stuff.
Yeah.
Are the now boxes copied and pasted from something else to where you can't edit it? So I have to erase it and then like create it somewhere else.
Or you could keep the text. You could like crop the picture, keep the text, and then just write 2 questions below it. If you double click the picture,
The little brain picture.
no, the actual text,
Oh yeah.
you can crop the questions out of it, and then right below the text, you could just write in the white space your own questions.
Oh wait, so am I using the original song text or am I using the passage already in the lesson?
Oh, I thought you wanted to keep it because you wanted to edit it. No,
Yeah, I was gonna take this out and type in see passage.
I got you. So then you can do the flip. You could just, yeah, it's just a picture. You can either delete it or crop it out.
Okay, I might delete it.
Also, I went ahead and for the next couple lessons for this week, I already had looked at some of this data, and so the graphic organizer for lesson 7 breaks these questions down even more.
I saw that. I was thinking that.
So hopefully that helps
That'll
too.
help, yeah.
Yeah. How are you on time?
I still don't remember, but I know we don't have much left. I can share with you what I was thinking of.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
So I was gonna pull the Walter's speech on the bottom of page 73 and top of page 74, where he's talking about his future, seemingly like this dark, empty, looming space, and put that as the do not passage. Ooh.
Bless you.
So first question is going to reflect question 9, based on Walter's statement to his mother, which is one that describes him at the end of this election. Try to pull out like the right answer is going to be. I couldn't decide if it should be frustrated or hopeless, because this is one of the parts where he's speaking quietly. So there's frustration, but it's not as obvious as when he's being passionate and loud and yelling at people. So I think the correct one is going to be frustrated, because hopeless would mean he doesn't think he can get it. He thinks he can, but he thinks she's stopping. So the correct answer is going to be frustrated, but I'm going to put hopeless in there and then make 2 others that are similar. And then the one that reflects number 11, what can be inferred from, and I'm going to choose one particular line from that passage that really hits on maybe the one where he's talking about like the white boys in the restaurant sitting down and making $1 million deals. What can be inferred from that? And the one that reflects number 12. How does this? Oh, that's really good. How does Walter's statement? It's not a numbered paragraph, but how does Walter's statement impact the plot at the end of scene 2?
Love it. And to set kids up for success that day, I would, in your teacher letter, you know how we have that slide?
Yeah.
Maybe screenshot the like report where it tells you for those 3 questions that they overwhelmingly got those wrong, and explain like, I've taken the question stems from the text or from the Learn Check 6 so that we could practice them again today. So I'm going to give you a red flag so you know to pay extra attention to when we get to those questions to understand it. But that's strong. Okay. Well, we are good to go to prep for 4th block. And I'm going to save this. And we have 7 days until we're out for break. And I'm pretty excited about that.
Me too. Making all my little plans. Since we're off, I promised my mom I'd give her some days off. She watches Max. So a few of those days that we're off, I'm going to keep them home with me so she can have some time to herself. A few days off for them.
That's nice of you.
Yeah.
Give up some of your
Try not
break.
to burn it up.
Yeah.
Burn it out, 'cause we need her.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to put this in the bucket?
I'll take it because that's where my pages are folded down.
Oh. I hope I didn't fold it in.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I just trying to think of those who, like, maybe aren't as a she's got, but she's gonna be strong at it, so that's fine. Did you get your car keys back? Okay. I'll give them forgiveness for trophy. But it's done. Even though it's raining right now. It's sprinkled. But I think he had a schedule that he had to maintain. So he couldn't. I don't know. Whatever. Okay,
really strong first and second block. I'm really feeling that result.